Hello, everyone. I'm Peggy Northrup. I'm the Chief Content Officer of Radavision and host of Sheiconomics. Welcome to Season 2 of our series honoring women founders and CEOs who inspire us with their superpowers, among them creativity, persistence, and a spirit of collaboration. I am here today with Dr. Ami Kumordzie, who is CEO of Sika Health, and she is on a mission to reinvent how we pay for healthcare. She's a Stanford-trained doctor with an MBA who realized that Americans lose, get this number, between $4 and $8 billion when their health savings and flexible savings accounts expire. That is such a huge number. We'll be talking about that. And she founded Sika Health to fix that problem and is well on her way to doing so. So, Ami, first of all, I want to thank you so much for talking to us today and for founding your company as a person who has struggled to use those benefits and found it utterly frustrating and just gave up. So, first of all, what I'd like to do is to ask you to tell us a little bit more about the founding of your company. What was the problem that you set out to solve?
Thank you so much, Peggy. It's such an honor to be here. I am incredibly inspired by the platform that you're building, and I'm very grateful to be able to tell my story to your audience. I'd love to tell you more about the founding of Sika, and maybe before I do, to build on your introduction, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself as well. So as you mentioned, I'm a physician turned founder of a seed stage company called Sika Health. Exactly like you're saying, we are on a mission to reinvent the way that we all pay for our healthcare needs. And the way that we're doing that is by offering financial technology to merchants that allows them to, enables you to be able to spend your health plan dollars, including and starting with your FSA and HSA funds as a form of payment. And really the reason that we're doing this ultimately is that we envision a future where everyone can afford the things that they need to get and stay healthy. And the way that we'll get there is by leveraging the tools that many of us have available to us in order to do so. So in terms of, what led to starting Sika, a lot of this was my own personal challenges navigating the healthcare system. Even though I've been a physician, I've spent my fair share of time as a patient and really struggled to figure out how do I afford the various things that I need, especially those purchases that help me stay healthier longer and help me stay proactively healthy. And in fact, one of the reasons I left medicine was that I struggled with the fact that as a healthcare system, we're sort of just fundamentally misaligned with that objective. To state it simply, the healthcare system makes more money the sicker that we are. And I really wanted to find a way to change that dynamic and to help create a system where we all benefit from investing proactively in healthcare. Now, the way that I found that I was able to do that through Sika, that actually the inspiration for that actually came during 2020. So like many people during 2020, my mom unfortunately lost her job, and part of losing her job meant losing her health plan, which for her meant that part of her health plan, her FSA, would just expire overnight. So she was one of that. So let's say part of the $4 to $8 billion worth of dollars that was at risk of expiring. And as I was helping her navigate this challenge, we essentially had to scramble to figure out how do we even use this benefit? How does a person, like my mom, sort of, learn the tax code overnight, basically,
Right.
and put this use it or lose it account to their benefit. And in going through that challenge, we essentially learned three really important things. The first thing that we learned is that there are way more ways to use your health plan, and specifically your FSA and HSA funds, than most people realize. For most people, what comes top of mind is using it on a doctor's copay or using it on a prescription. And certainly those are very valuable ways to spend those dollars. But I had learned over the years that you could actually use it on something like maybe an exercise bike or
Right.
on a mattress to improve your sleep. I even bought a dog with my
Amazing.
funds in the past. Exactly. So there are way more ways to use those dollars than people realize. The second thing that we learned is that really the root cause of this problem, which is really a two-sided problem, is yes, there's a challenge with consumer awareness, but I think the bigger challenge is really with the awareness around the merchants. The retailers that are selling these funds really struggle with helping people understand, or even understanding themselves, which of their items are eligible. If so, how do I accept these funds? These funds are not like regular debit and credit cards. They're regulated. They're regulated by the IRS. So how do I do so in a manner that's fully compliant with the IRS, right? So that was the second thing we learned, is that merchants really face quite a few challenges with navigating the space of regulated healthcare dollars. The last thing that we learned through this experience is that we really weren't alone, right? There are about 70 million people who have these accounts today. That was actually, back in, 2020 or so. So that number has grown quite a bit since then. About $150 billion that's being contributed into these accounts every year. So a massive amount of money. That number, by the way, is growing exponentially. It's one of the fastest growing pockets of healthcare dollars. And ultimately, as you were saying, a lot of those dollars either sit idle or in fact expire, right, to the tune of $48 billion a year. So for all those reasons, a big opportunity, big market, and an urgent need, I decided to start Sika Health.
Wonderful. It's such a great story. And again, so needed. It's like one of those problems that every family has, and there's nobody to help you do it except for your HR department, which let's face it, they don't really know how to help you on that either, most of them. Now, you were born in Ghana and you spent your first 6 years there. How did that experience affect you on your choice of field? I know you started out, you always wanted to be a doctor, right?
That's exactly right. So I was born in Ghana. I came to the U.S. at the age of 6 with my mom, and I did want to be a physician my whole life. That's the only thing I've ever wanted to be, in fact. And a big part of that, the reason for that, is that in my transition from the U.S. to Ghana, a lot of things were different, right? Of course, but I noticed that there was one thing that stayed the same in both of these places, even though they were drastically different places. One of the things that I observed was that health and wealth are these things that are sort of, inextricably linked, in that, poverty in a lot of ways breeds poor health. And likewise, in both places, I saw that poor health was often one of the major drivers for poverty. And so part of the reason that I wanted to become a physician was that I felt that if I could get at someone's health, if I could help them improve their health, I could give them a chance to live a better life. I could give them a chance to be more prosperous in life. And it was almost an act of like social justice in a way that could equally serve, people, back home in Ghana. It will now allow me to serve equally people back home in Ghana as it would in my new home in the U.S. So that was really the sort of underlying motivation for me. The ironic thing is that when I got to Stanford Medical School, I just started to realize how much things were broken within our healthcare system, especially on the financial side of healthcare, and especially given how closely health and wealth are linked. I was surprised to see that there was just a real lack of good financial tools, right, to help us as consumers, as well as to help us as physicians, right? Understanding the cost of care was harder than it ought to be. Providing our patients with ways to save on healthcare was something that was also very, very difficult. And so realizing how connected these two sort of factors were, I really wanted a way to help fix those problems at the root. I knew that I needed to do that more at a systems level. It was something that would be really difficult, if not impossible, to do literally one patient at a time. So that's ultimately why I stepped off the clinical track, decided not to go to residency, ended up getting an MBA, and then pursued the path that I'm on now.
Fantastic. Well, have there been any surprises along the way for you in this journey, whether as an entrepreneur and the things that you have to do as an entrepreneur? I'm sure raising money has been a process. So talk a little bit about the surprises that you found.
Oh, such a great question, a way of phrasing that question too. So I'd say every day is a surprise. There's so many surprises along the journey in a positive way. Every day, said differently, every day is learning for me, which is really exciting. On the fundraising piece specifically, and I was fortunate, I raised in a very different market, where there was, a lot more capital in the market. So I think I was overall, I think, very fortunate. But regardless, I think one of the things that surprised me that I think could be relevant for your audience is that fundraising, like many other things in life, is really all about relationships. The way that I was able to raise, and I ended up raising about $6 billion for my seed round. I closed that round in early 2022, but I started, like probably most people start, most people who may be listening start. I thought, I don't really know any investors. I don't know where to start. I've never raised money before. Like, where does this begin? And so I started close to home with just people that I had close, relationships with. I started with previous managers. I started with people that were partners at the consulting firm that I worked with previously. I started, by connecting with people who may be angel investors. And, I got a lot of no's. That wasn't surprising, but through some of those no's turned into maybes, some of those maybes turned into yeses, and then some of those yeses turned into, and let me introduce you to this next person. And so I think that was really the surprising and really magical element, and the magical thing that I learned about fundraising is the more that I could sort of treat these as relationships that I'm building over time, as conversations of, people getting to know me, getting to know the business, building that trust in me, because ultimately when you fundraise, when you build a business, when you sell a product, especially in early days, a lot of what you're selling is the relationship with you, the sort of vision, the mission that you're on. And so a critical part of that is, being willing to over time form that relationship and then allow those relationships to compound, right, to then get to wherever you're needing to go next.
Right. That's great. I know a lot of women feel awkward about raising money or asking for money. It's not something that we have really been trained to do. I mean, nobody's really been trained to ask for that kind of money, I don't think. But a lot of women say that that's their hardest thing as an entrepreneur. But I love that you put it in the relational term because that's something that women tend to be pretty good at, right? So, and one thing that I wonder about is, here at Sheconomics, we really do believe that women bring superpowers to entrepreneurship. That's why women-led companies tend to outperform the market on every measure, except maybe getting venture money. But they're more capital efficient. They are attacking problems like the one you are, that create a sense of justice, that are really about the community. So do you think that are things that the market needs to recognize about women founders that would be helpful for the whole economy?
I think exactly like you're saying, women have incredible strengths, particularly on the relationship front, that I think make us uniquely qualified in some ways to lead companies of any size, to raise any amount of capital, to see opportunities that maybe may have not been addressed or seen before. So
Right.
I'm really, these are the reasons that it sort of excites me that there's programming like there is, and that I hope that we're able to inspire more women that, to pursue solutions to the problems that they see, right? And
Right.
to sort of be willing to be the first or the only or one of few for the time being, and therefore through that pave the way for others to follow.
And you told me something when we first spoke about your own superpower that I have been thinking about ever since, about that comfort with discomfort. Can you talk about how you see yourself as a person with a certain superpower?
One of the things I've gotten very comfortable with over time is just discomfort. And I mean that in many, many ways, but one of the ways that shows up anyway on that I think is very relatable is just, every day is a new learning experience. Every day is a surprise, right? And I think the sooner that I was able to become comfortable with that is normal, right? To become comfortable with being in a certain amount of discomfort, and just knowing that that's kind of part of the process. And if anything, getting too comfortable can often be a sign that maybe the learning curve is flattening and it's time for a new challenge.
Right, to not have to be good at absolutely everything, and recognizing that you can learn a lot. I mean, I think often of all the things that I've had to learn, all the different systems I've had to learn. It's like that is the thing that keeps me interested in working and in meeting new people, is when you see the world as a place to learn from, you have a really different attitude toward it. So that's wonderful. Those are real words to live by. So I want to ask you also if there's anything that you wish you had known earlier. This is often a wonderful thing for founders to pass on to one another. Is there something that you wish you had known? A fact about any part of this process that would have been super useful to know on day one and not day 301?
Yeah. Yes, great question. I think one of the there are many of those, but one of the sort of facts that I've been noodling on, especially these days, is that, it's really about who and not how. And there's actually a book about this that I read recently by Dan Sullivan, that I sort of keep in in the back of my mind in everything I do. Especially in starting the early days of starting the business, I tried to kind of do everything myself, right? And I sort of had this very much like how mindset. How am I going to go raise this money? How am I going to build this product? How am I going to sell this thing? How am I going to get this customer? How am I going to do this? It was how can I turn myself into 5 different people, the 5 different people that I need to be able to achieve this goal, until a flip switched in my mind. And I realized, in part by reading, books like the one I referenced, Who Not How, as well as by surrounding myself with people who could sort of reorient my thinking. The biggest thing I realized is that the way that we achieve goals, the way that we move quickly, is through the who's. It's by surrounding ourselves with people who can bring skills that we don't have, who can help us accelerate, right? Who can help us, build relationships, or who can help us, get customers, who can help us, provide that capital. So again, kind of going back to that relationship point, right? That everything that I've done and, that we do as a company is through relationships. It's through the who. It's through investing in the who's and empowering the who's, as opposed to trying to figure out how we do these things
and
all
how to
apart
do everything yourself. Yeah. That idea of having to do everything yourself. I mean, there's a kind of joy in entrepreneurship and thinking, I'm going to do it all myself and nobody's going to tell me what to do. And then you quickly get up to the limit. Though one hard limit is time. You don't have enough time. You never have enough time. There's only 24 hours in a day. And so learning how to delegate, learning how to let other people in, especially when you start out with this very strong idea and belief in yourself, and learning to let other people in, I think, is a challenge. How do you feel about that? How did you deal with that?
Absolutely. And, I'll be honest, I think I'm still dealing with that. I think especially early days when it sort of feels very precious to you, it feels like sort of your baby, your idea, right? And your mindset, or my mindset early days, was how do I grow up this baby, right? How do I do X, Y, and Z things that need to be done in order to help this thing really survive it and grow? But, to sort of borrow an African village, to borrow an African proverb, it takes a village. It takes surrounding yourself with a village of who's, right? People who can help you achieve your goals, accelerate, bring new perspectives, help you think about things differently than you might have, bring new skills, right? To really take from, where you've started to really taking on ownership, right? Of, what may have initially started off as sort of your idea, your vision, but hopefully can be the collective mission of these who's that you bring around the table. And by the way, I use that term who's, loosely to, of course, represent, whoever's on your team, right? whoever is on the front lines, whether it's your sales force, your engineering teams, your, maybe even your service providers and contractors, as well as your investors, right? The people who are supplying you, hopefully potentially supplying you capital, as well as your customers. Customers are really the most critical who's, right?
Right.
To bring on board, understanding that customer deeply, understanding what problem you're solving for them, how you're solving that problem, helping them to be the who's that introduce you to new customers is critical. And I'd say probably the last thing on the who front is, and this one I have to consciously remind myself a lot of and actively work towards, but the who's outside of your company, the who's that make you who you are beyond your company are critical. So whether it's your family, your partner, your friends, if you have children, for me, part of my who is my support animal.
Yeah.
So whoever it is that is in your life that sort of helps to keep you grounded, helps to keep you sane, helps to provide that sense of mission beyond and purpose, right, beyond the thing that we're doing to serve the world, are all critical, right? And I think are ultimately the thing that help make us effective as leaders and as business owners.
I think that's so important to talk about because I know so many women who are burned out, whether they're entrepreneurs or just in corporate life. And I suffered from this myself. My old way of working was to say, okay, I sign on the dotted line and now, I'm yours forever. I'll sleep when I'm dead, which is a crazy way. But here you're a doctor, you know about taking care of yourself. So does the medical training that you have, does that inform the way you take care of yourself? I mean, I love this idea of all the people around you who are so important to your well-being and to your effectiveness. We tend not to think that way.
Yeah. That my main response was, doctors make the worst patients. So I'll confess that I'm a patient just like everyone else. I struggle with the eating well, the exercise, the sleep, but I do try, and I do know, and I remind myself that you have to be your best self, right? You have to show up with a full cup in order to have something to give, right, to the people around you, whether they're in your business or outside of your business. So I certainly try. And some of the I think to extend the who concept, I think part of what I've needed to do and try to continue to do is having a set of who's around my personal life as well. So whether it's someone who can support me in maintaining, my household, making sure that I have a clean house, right? Someone who can, I'm a big believer in massage therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that, especially when times get stressful, I bring into on a weekly basis, bring into my regimen. I have a Peloton bike and have some of my favorite trainers, work through the Peloton app, as well as, meditation, exercise, meditation, and really just being willing to sort of spend time with myself, right, and with my thoughts, and sort of recharge myself at the end of a difficult day or a long day or a long week. And so, and of course, my partner and family and all that. But it is, yes, continuing to invest in oneself and in myself is probably, the thing that, I'm most, takes a lot of effort, but also is probably the most, most high yield, right?
Right.
Thing that I can do on a daily and weekly basis.
But if you think much more about, how do I schedule in my self-care and how do I make sure that I'm not letting my work just leak into absolutely everything, it's at least you feel like you're settling in a different way, you're managing in a different way. Does that resonate with you?
It does. I definitely, I've sort of abandoned the idea of balance,
Yeah.
work-life balance a long time ago, because
Yeah.
I think to your point, it's just kind of a fallacy. Like there's no magical balance of this many hours of work and this many hours of life. And I'm fortunate, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have children, so it's even harder, right? And I'll acknowledge it's even harder when people have children or have, are caretakers of older parents. That only adds the complexity. But so agreeing with you that there's often not a real sense of balance, especially in the entrepreneurship life. But that's where I think the notion of balance comes from, mostly a notion of just being mindful of, like, are we at least aware when
Right.
work has taken up this much and there's this much left for life, right?
Right.
And how do we build that awareness on, and how do we sort of build the habits to ensure that we can sort of be more deliberate and conscious, right? There may be times where the work, load grows to a certain point, right? Where we then have to take actions to make things more sustainable, whether it's taking a vacation, taking, some extra personal time. I'll often do like just introvert days, because I'm quite the introvert, and
I love that.
right. And there are some days where, like, I don't even want to see my friends. Like, I just wanted to, have a day where it's just me. I do some solo self-care activity. And then, once I've refilled my cup, can then come back and, and enjoy that time, whether it's, socially with friendships, or socially within the company. So that I can really sort of be my best through that.
The doctor says take an introvert day and get a massage, which I plan to put into practice, like, pretty much immediately this afternoon.
Yeah, I highly recommend.
I love that. I love that.
And use your HSA FSA for that too.
And use my HSA benefits to do so. Yes, exactly. I want to ask you, just finish up. Thank you so much for all the time that you've spent with us today. Is there anything else that you are looking forward to right now, both for your either for your company or for yourself?
Oh, that's such a great question. I mean, it's similar answers, but for the company, I'm just really looking forward to 2024. There's, we're at such an interesting and important inflection point in the company, in that, we went from, really just, again, that transition from how do I do this to who, right? Building out in that phase an incredible team, getting our product live in market, getting some of our initial customers, some of which are sort of, more well-known brands, which has been really exciting, and now really building a repeatable motion around bringing on those customers. And what I see for us in 2024, if you sort of think of the early phase of as almost like rubbing sticks together, trying to spark a flame. Now we've got a flame, and we get to sort of fan that flame, and really sort of take our product to market, and allow it to really catch fire. And so that's what I'm looking forward to on behalf of the business in 2024. I think what that means for me is, and what I'm excited about, is coming to a place where we'll be able to, really empowering, the folks around me, the folks on our team, including our, internally, as well as our customers, our sort of broader support network, to help us, really cascade that message, and through that, creating even more sort of evangelists and champions for this thing that we're building. And I think with that, it's just a lot of joy for me, a lot of gratification, seeing, the end, all the way from the people within our company, all the way to our end consumers that are finding use and joy out of our product. So I'm really looking forward to that year, and to be able to sort of course, actively contribute to that, but also observe that as we inspire more people to sort of carry on our mission, into the year.
Wonderful. Well, more surprise and delight in 2024 for you and Sika Health. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate hearing your story. Is there anything that I have left out that you want to make sure you say? Because we still have time to do that. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
I think we've mostly covered everything. I'm just so thankful, to be able to share my story, to hopefully share one of the lessons. And I tell you, these are, I don't I'm sort of speaking from the heart. These are things that I'm actively thinking about, and it's always a joy to reflect on. Take these moments to reflect on, the way I'm thinking about discomfort, the way I'm thinking about wellness, the way I'm thinking about, inspiring. Hopefully people to believe in themselves and to take steps towards the life that they hope to live, the problems that they hope to solve, and the businesses that they're looking to start. So it's just an honor and a pleasure to be a part of the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Dr. Ami Kumordzie. I really appreciate being able to talk to you, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Peggy.